Eddie Frederick has got it all. Inspiration, motivation, great advice, and biting opinion pieces as only Eddie Frederick can deliver. Eddie Frederick has got it all.
Welcome to EDDIE-FICATION, made possible by the efforts of the Center for Democracy and Good Governance, CDGG. The Center for Democracy and Good Governance is a sound organization established to promote and strengthen democracy. For too long now, our generally perceived poorly educated electorate have fallen victim to the cheap and inferior propaganda of those seeking to hold others captive under the guise of democracy. Gladly, the CDGG uses EDDIE-FICATION to help to actively pursue a sustainable approach to reorient our people towards the importance of electing and selecting people of good character to public life. Through EDDIE-FICATION, we will highlight the importance of education appropriate to our development, proper healthcare and facilities as our right, respect for law and order, not to mention upgrading our people's thinking so they could become qualified participants in the democratic process to their advantage. After all, Grenada's national constitution makes allowances for the ideal of free men to enjoy freedom from fear and want, which can be best achieved if conditions are created whereby everyone may enjoy his economic, social and political, civil and cultural rights.
I want the best for my family, so every meal has to be perfect. Every bite has to say, There's no doubt in my mind that the best in frozen meats and vegetables has to come from the Country Cold Store. Hams, turkeys, sausages, beef, pork, chicken. I just don't know my family is in safe hands. Thank you, Country Cold Store, for being there for us for the past 40 years.
The Country Cold Store, providing the best in frozen meats and vegetables since 1969.
Attention all forward-thinking companies. Sure, you can do with a continuous positive boost to your image and impact your bottom line. Hiring the right people with the right attitude and mindset is where to start. Even if you did not get it right through your current hiring methods, we can help develop the right mindset for your current employees. If you think training is expensive, try not training, and you will experience a perpetual downward spiral in patronage on account of increased dissatisfied customers. Take things into your hands and engage the best at motivation and customer care training with a tried and tested track record. Visit www.efrederick.com now and learn how you can change the atmosphere in your business and improve the customer experience for everyone who does business with you. Spice Island Beach Resort and Belmont Estate are two such local entities of world renown that have benefited tremendously from ongoing customer care, social skills, and motivation training. Training changes everything for the better for any business and every team member. Enhance employee performance through increased awareness and passion for the job at hand. Greater potential in your workforce awaits you through engaged, high-energy training that works. Log on now, www.efrederick.com.
Eddie Frederick has got it all. Inspiration, motivation, great advice, and biting opinion pieces as only Eddie Frederick can deliver. Eddie Frederick has got it all.
Right. Folks, welcome. Good day, folks. And of course, this is Sunday, 21st January 2024. And you'd never believe, folks, it's 50th year, the 50th year since Bloody Monday. That fateful Monday when a massive New Jewel Movement NJM opposition organized demonstration against independence on 7th February 1974 turned into mayhem with the death of Rupert Bishop, father of then NJM leader Maurice Bishop, on the carronage in the vicinity of Otway House. What a pity not much has progressed since then, as we were saddled from 1995, 12 years after the crash of the People's Revolution of Maurice Bishop and Bernard Coard, with a most retrogressive administration led by a self-seeking idiot with absolutely no vision and plans for Grenada's true north development. Of course, after gaining independence on 7th February 1974, The anti-Gary struggle continued, climaxing on March 13th, 1979, in a popular revolution. The revolutionaries saw to it that Gary, being left off island at the time, because this coup was planned for March 13th, of course they knew that he was traveling the day before, remained in exile for the life of the revolution. Incidentally, Gary's return in the early aftermath of the crash of the said revolution on October 19, 1983, was planned for and carefully executed on 21st January 1984. By this time, Sir Eric was 28 days shy of his 62nd birthday, but noticeably mangled from the stresses of status starvation and somewhat blind. These are important parts of the chronological order of our recorded local history that most of our youthful population have been prevented from knowing, and hence their lack of ability to reason when it comes to things history. Giving life to the proverb, are people who do not know their history bound to repeat it. As we come closer to independence, I plan to share a relevant excerpt of my still to be published This Is My Island, a short historical account of our local history, especially in light of the new awakening of patriotic fervor that we can feel throughout the length and breadth of Grenada, Carriacou, and Petit Martinique, with the election to office of a young and successful corporate lawyer, Deacon Mitchell, and his NDC team to replace the rubbish heap that the negligence of so many of you allowed to grope the corridors of local power for so goddamn long. Come on, folks, share the live. And let's get a move on here today, as we promise to be smoking hot with loads of pearls of wisdom to inspire and motivate you to take action to change your lives. You have the power to make things better for yourselves. It has to do with your consciousness to make the right choices. I want you to remember, folks, stress comes about in our very lives when we make poor choices. Our topic today, being out leaves him out of serious business. Out, out, out. While Grenada goes up, 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 in spite of all his stupidness. As I said some time ago, many times we have different routes to finally end up sitting in our purpose. We must have our own experience with people to know who they really are. You see, we can be warned, and a warning helps to prepare us, but nothing beats our own experience, and the lesson will have been properly learned then and only then. You see, none of us should have any regret for where we've been in our lives and where we are right now. If we are conscious enough to realize that that place is not serving us, we ought to know what to do. This life is ours, and we must be prepared to love our good fortunes and appreciate our mistakes, as together they are the sum total of who we are and who we are becoming. Folks, I own all my mistakes because without them, I could not be the desirable personality that I am so pleased with myself for having become today. One that no one can take and play no fool with. I no longer drink. I never and still do not do drugs. I don't go crazy, over parties. In fact, I accept no invitation, none whatsoever. And I am not out all night chasing anything and anyone. I go to bed early. I wake up early. And what does that do to me? I don't concern myself with anyone's business that isn't mine. To most people, I might appear to be boring. Funny enough, that is how I like it. This makes it easy for me to figure out who I don't want to be around. In trying to accomplish things that require discipline, I have to be focused. If for some reason you are the type of person that thinks how I choose to live is boring, then you are the type of person that is not welcome into my life. It's quite obvious that you're the type of person, if I have around me, will try to drag me down. I am sure as day you will not want to be around me, and that saves me the trouble not having to get rid of you. I am so happy with the solitude that I have gravitated to because of the choice to be reclusive, so I can spend the rest of my life on real and genuine self-development activities, mostly in my own company and with the great company of my only two solid telephone friends and the folks in my home, to include two dogs, especially my Tiffy. You see, this gone week, folks, I had the good fortune, I have to call it the good fortune, of witnessing the consistency of our recently appointed traffic court magistrate, Her Worship Kindra Mathurin Stewart. All I can say is, wow. This honorable magistrate really sits in her purpose indeed. And I'm just borrowing that particular declaration from my dear daughter who accompanied me sometime in October and declared that about Her Worship Kindra Mathurin Stewart when she saw the authority with which she dispensed her justice, or even disposed of herself while on the bench. It is so heartwarming the way she dispenses her sentencing, respectfully, with accompanying admonitions and guidance, humbles her subjects, while of course the government's coffers celebrate the receipt of much needed revenues. I admire the way she asks her subjects if they understand the serious nature of their unlawful acts, while going a step further to show them the worst that can happen if they insist on operating on the nation's roads without being lawfully equipped to be there. Serious as a judge does not fit her personality at all, as she is quite soft on the eyes, with intelligence and brights dwelling in the same human vessel, making for it to be easy to focus on the business at hand, the dispensation of justice. Folks, in the middle of all the mayhem and rubbish in our society, there are good things and good people around, and we must celebrate them when we find them. I noticed something in the court also that moves outside of the negative norms of our society today. Officers of the court, lawyers, that is, they're very helpful to offenders who appear before the honorable magistrate without counsel. They volunteer to give advice and guide them through their proceedings in pursuit of ensuring that justice is served. Folks, this thing was mind-boggling to me. I couldn't believe what I was actually witnessing. Folks, all is truly not lost among us, even though so much has changed for the worse. If I could afford it, folks, upon total retirement from work, I would make my way to the nation's courts daily just to follow the proceedings, as they can be both informative and extremely entertaining, I dare say. One can learn so much from the environment of justice. We've got some really talented legal practitioners indeed. Now, this is the kind of Grenada we all should crave to live in, and not the one we escaped, where everyone was taken for a fool by a shabby leader with absolutely no vision and no good intention for anyone but himself. As we settle down to build, let all who lost out on being integral to the great vision for a great future sweat it out. For being out leaves them out of serious business. Out, out, out. While Grenada goes up, 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 in spite of all their stupidness. Folks, let's take a little break here. Remember, I promised you some serious heat today. Make sure you have your fan on, because your phone, your iPad, your whatever it is you're looking at me on, viewing, will get very hot today. So study your head. Let's take a little break here and we come right back.
Eddie Frederick has got it all. Inspiration, motivation, great advice, and biting opinion pieces as only Eddie Frederick can deliver. Eddie Frederick has got it all.
This is Edification, made possible by the efforts of the Center for Democracy and Good Governance, CDGG. The strength of views and opinions expressed during edification are not necessarily a reflection or representation of the sponsors and/or affiliates of this program.
I want the best for my family, so every meal has to be perfect. Every bite has to say, There's no doubt in my mind that the best in frozen meats and vegetables has to come from the country cold store. Hams, turkeys, sausages, beef, pork, chicken. I just don't know my family is in safe hands. Thank you, Country Cold Store, for being there for us for the past 40 years.
The Country Cold Store, providing the best in frozen meats and vegetables since 1969.
Eddie Frederick has got it all. Inspiration, motivation, great advice, and biting opinion pieces as only Eddie Frederick can deliver. Eddie Frederick has got it all.
Wonderful, wonderful, folks. Wonderful. We have a lot more, being out leaves him out of serious business. Out, out, out. While Grenada goes up, up, up. And that up, up, up business there, that bothers them. Anytime anybody tell you anything that is on tone, just say up, up, up. And you see how fast, fast, fast. They will disappear. Oh, Lord have mercy. Just simple little pearls of wisdom, folks. Folks, we cannot be saying through one side of our mouth the old nastiness not coming back. Yet for all being shaken by his foolishness and slackness that only renders him a mental case, since his humiliating defeat at the polls by the rookie whom he had promised to teach a lesson. And hell came down on him like a ton of bricks on the 23rd of June 2022. Make up your minds, folks. I know this idiot ain't coming back anywhere. Full stop. Put that in your heads and let it become your daily affirmation. The old nastiness ain't coming back. Let me see you put that in the comment section. Come on, affirm with me. The old nastiness ain't coming back. The old nastiness ain't coming back. When you're doing your jog in the morning, affirm that. When you're doing your walk in the morning, in the evening, just before you go to bed in the night, affirm. The old nastiness ain't coming back. It's as simple as that. Not coming back. Stop saying it and acting it halfway. Let it be a resounding, clear manifestation. The old nastiness ain't coming back. Not coming back. That not, you remember Scrunter? That not happening here tonight. That not happening no time. Because he's spent, he's done. Squandered his time and it's all over. Remember, the old nastiness ain't coming back. Come on, keep affirming it. That has to be aggravating for any status-starved individual who needs the trappings of an office to feel accepted by people or a nation, and who, in the absence of any such trappings, walk naked in the eyes of so many. That has to be humiliating in truth. You see, when we are in lofty positions and in offices, we need to understand that it is not us people pander to, but the office we occupy. If we remain humble like former Prime Minister Delma Thomas, who never vaunted himself around with pomposity and falseness, even the title former Prime Minister will become integral to who you are without having to demand being so referred. Folks, isn't that interesting? So when you don't know who you are, you end up answering to anything. I am very pleased, as should you, that with all the negative energies turned up by the old nastiness and his communications goons, all of whom look like drakes and vagrants, that mainstream sort of Grenada is not taking the bait. Grenada, nobody's studying them. They are light entertainment. And correctly so. You see, the majority of our people are just not falling for the slackness, the nonsense, the fear-mongering that these infidels are attempting to spread. Look at how soon each attempt comes to naught, zero. There is something about the new atmosphere in Grenada that convinces me that this year is going to be a great one for those of us who are prepared to make optimum use of it. We have to convert that feeling into reality, and we can only do so with the right supportive action in order to make it make sense to us. And so we all can stand in our purpose as a progressive nation making required progress. Remember, that old nastiness ain't coming back. You see, being out leaves you out of serious business. Out, out, out. While Grenada goes up, 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 in spite of all the continued stupidness of the old nastiness and his goons. I recall my now deceased mother saying to us as children, if you have patience, you will see Aunt's belly. I am seeing this as true as the gospel daily. For those who the breath of life was not too generous towards and are not here to see certain things come to pass, aunts will surely bring the news. Dr. Raphael Fletcher, a one-time elected member of parliament who ran on a winning ticket for a younger version of the old nastiness back in 1995, he promised us all that in the fullness of time, we will witness the unraveling of the old nastiness. Hey, that time is now. The number of people who were made to see trouble by this local head of the local chapter of ISIS, that old nastiness, when he was flying high, now that the tables have turned, are about to see for themselves the trouble he is in and the trouble he is about to see. With all the ill-gotten gains he is supposed to have amassed over the years, while large and in charge, he has not even an iota of happiness. I learned a long time now, no matter what you lose, you did not lose at all if what you have left is peace, which ultimately leads to happiness. The old nastiness would be wise to be instructed to know, no matter what one gains, you really lost if it cost you your peace on the way. No matter what you have amassed over your lifetime, the only thing that gives you fulfillment is peace. If your personal business can be all in the streets in a way that even if anyone repeats anything therefrom, there are documents to support their case in any lawsuits you may wish to file against them for disparaging you with it. You cannot have peace. Goodly folks, thank you for joining us to get your usual dose of mental multivitamins that you can get only via this medium where there is no rambling, but just a daring never before known. You see, Edification 201 reflects frankness unchained. When we have patience, we will see Ant's belly indeed. Look at how the fullness of time has finally reached for that old nastiness and his brigands, to the point where being out leaves him and his goons out of serious business. And so it's out, 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 while Grenada goes up, 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 without him and them. You see, thanks for joining me every Sunday at 2 p.m. for at least 1 hour of what the doctor ordered. Truth unbridled. Look at how patience proves itself to be a virtue that forces all the deception of the old nastiness to reveal themselves. You see, deception is a trait of an impatient person who most times involve himself or herself in dishonesty to get ahead. The story in the Bible is told of the disciples who mostly disappeared when Pilate secured the arrest of Jesus. This old nastiness never truly loved you. He was hoping to find and secure his place while using you, just like Simon Peter. You see, John was the only apostle who remained true to Jesus. Look at how many Grenadians God has allowed the privilege to be alive to see the unraveling of the old nastiness today. Richard Duncan, Delma Thomas, Grace Duncan, Clarice Charles, among so many others, myself included, and a recent entrant to that group, Delma Thomas. You know, when I tell you, we have a lot to be grateful for in this life. You think it's a joke I'm making? Sawandi, I know you logged on because you say present very early. You will hear me remind you that your wish is coming true much earlier than you thought it would. The old nastiness is living long enough to lose his mind indeed. He's pushing 80, a privilege many of us may never be so lucky to experience. However, that being said, if at all we are privileged to so experience, let us ask the Creator for his mercies all now, so that we do not live it with a lost mind like the old nastiness is exhibiting constantly. I tell you already, the environment of curse that he constructed over the years that has now matured and swallowing him up is indicative of my supposition that his wench of a faceless, nameless monster looks like she really does send him out daily with solid instructions. Now watch. Don't come back if you did not make a complete ass of yourself. And it looks like he resolutely obeys. The same thing that got him into office and kept him there for so long is the same thing that took him out, and his consistency at it causes to be the same thing that will keep him out forever. His consistency at lying and downright dishonesty has caused him to run out of lies that can hold people's attention, as they were able to when the majority was not paying attention. His same consistency is the same tool that has caused people who are paying attention today to realize he is just downright dishonest and not to be trusted, to the point where they are all laughing at him today as the clown he is and always has been. But thank God, our modern young people are paying attention because they now have a leader that they can look up to for guidance. When I tell you, he ain't coming back, you think it's a joke I'm making? He not coming back. You know when you're daring some little children and they tell you they're not, well, he not coming back. All the hoodwinked supporters who are out there making mawet, take this from me. he will get a worse licking than he received last election should he try to come back with his expired old self. O-L-E. Old self. Folks, the dynamics that are at play today are not the same as 10 years ago. The NDC is not decimated by any NNP plant from within. The plant from back then is now on the old nastiness's side, giving him West as his chief challenger and contributing to his lunacy that we are seeing acting out in the public sphere. I want to recommend to Mrs. Delma Thomas, very serious recommendation. You are now the Minister for Mental Health. I want you to make your first assignment that of issuing a warrant for the old nastiness's immediate detention for serious mental evaluation and treatment, as he is a mental menace to the nation. This warrant should include all his unsavory minions who are let loose on the nation's airwaves, uttering daily and weekly doses of rubbish, according to the Nigerians. Rubbish, reflective of mental incapacity and unwellness, in an effort to destabilize our nation. Pick them all up for urgent mental evaluation and treatment. Have you seen how joyous our nation's youth, the children in schools, are when they see our youthful Prime Minister, Deacon Mitchell? Oh, they cherish his company. Do you recall at any time when any student was happy to see this old grumpy grandpa when he was in their presence? Many of them will be the next voters come next to general election. And I know they ain't voting for he. When people remain too long around the leadership of anything, they overstay their welcome and they are usually treated poorly to the point of contempt. Case in point, the old nastiness and his current experience. It is quite obvious that he has no friends of substance and is totally status starved. The people who his administration was enabled by are still progressing with their lives and in their various business entities and engagements are no longer in need of him. In fact, several of them are known to be clients of the legal firm of the current Prime Minister Mitchell & Co., who delivered well for and on their behalf by way of successful legal representation. And so, with his pivot into local politics, it is my humble belief that they have pivoted with him. You see where the abject loneliness we can see so easily on display by the old nastiness is coming from? No real friends. So mental depression sets in to dominate all the wild clown-like behavior we are witnessing today. Quiz our history, folks. Let's just put the history book open and quiz it, and you will see who were the people who rose up and overthrew and made sure Gary was gone, never to return. Children of his supporters, children of labor all overthrew Gary, who they determined was spent at the age of 58. Imagine, Gary was overthrown when he was 58 years old. Yet for all, at a time when our people ought to be more enlightened because of all that we are exposed to by way of technology, and a population over 60% of whom are under 35, with a median age of our people at 32. You almost encouraged a close to 80-year-old nastiness around the precincts of power way into the 21st century. You ain't see something wrong with all you? Something wrong with among you. 73 years ago, a young 29-year-old local came, and history records that the statement he made was that the age of leadership moved to younger people of color from the older, frowsy colonial agents, be they real white or even bottom-foot buckras posing as Grenada whites, to a real and genuine one of us, Eric Matthew Gary. Folks, all apart from my colorful and descriptive language used to present the foregoing, that is history. And history is about truth, not opinion. Vusi Tembekwayo of the VT Club 100. He can be seen on Instagram anytime, folks. In a recent reel he put out, he asked if you ever notice that thinkers are usually hated when they're alive and loved when they're dead. In fact, right here in Grenada, we've had two leaders who were hated when they were alive and loved and even remembered fondly now that they are both dead. Eric Gary, now referred to as the father of independence and the visionary of his time, who brought St. George's University to our shores. St. George's University contributes over 20% to our GDP, our gross domestic product, folks, our economy, in other words. Could you imagine that? That is a legacy material that Gary has left. Something he brought to Grenada is propping up our economy on a 20% basis in our best times, and in our worst times could even climb to over 30% of our economy. Gary was a visionary of his time. He envisioned our international airport in the same spot. He had started the process for universal education, free of cost, across the board. Lowered the voting age to 18 from 21, among other good stuff. And of course, Maurice Bishop, the face of our popular revolution that overthrew Eric Gary and ran an administration that came closest to addressing the developmental needs of our people through improved healthcare, proper education, agro-industrial and agricultural development, tourism product development, better infrastructure, social safety net through the establishment of the national insurance scheme that every succeeding administration used as a piggy bank, to the chagrin of the fund's ability to sustain itself in today's age when so many people are now retired and dependent on their returns, etc., etc., etc. Could you list anything this old nastiness left for you that is of a sustaining nature? Nothing. And that's the truth. That's not my opinion. Nothing. Folks, on the international scenes, if we Google Malcolm X's articles and read what people were writing about him when he was alive, then we can Google Martin Luther King and see what black people were writing about him when he was alive. Google Muhammad Ali and see what black people were writing about him when he changed his name from Cassius Clay to Muhammad Ali. Once you think for yourself and you lead, and you have the courage to speak your truth, you must expect to be hated and expect to be misunderstood. Folks, the only thing people hate more than the truth is the person who speaks it. And I'm always in the mood to be hated. When people criticized the so-called Elon Musk, a fool, they call him a fool for building electric cars. If he only gave in because of that, we would not have Tesla today, followed by so many other electric car models in the world. Folks, we must genuinely get scared when people like us. When people like you and they like you too much, you have to get scared, because we have to be sure we're doing something that God does not want us to do. When on the contrary, it is something that God wants us to do, they will not like you. And I am always in the mood not to be liked or loved by anyone. How many of all you could say that and really mean it? I do me. You vex, that's a matter for you and your ugly face. Being out leaves them out of serious business. Out, out, out. While Grenada goes up, 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 in spite of all their stupidness. Let's take a little break here and we're coming back. Folks, if you thought that segment was tough, look at the next one coming. You ain't see nothing yet.
Eddie Frederick has got it all. Inspiration, motivation, great advice, and biting opinion pieces as only Eddie Frederick can deliver. Eddie Frederick has got it all.
This is Edification, made possible by the efforts of the Center for Democracy and Good Governance, CDGG. The strength of views and opinions expressed during edification are not necessarily a reflection or representation of the sponsors and/or affiliates of this program.
I want the best for my family, so every meal has to be perfect. Every bite has to say, There's no doubt in my mind that the best in frozen meats and vegetables has to come from the Country Cold Store. Hams, turkeys, sausages, beef, pork, chicken. I just don't know my family is in safe hands. Thank you, Country Cold Store, for being there for us for the past 40 years.
The Country Cold Store, providing the best in frozen meats and vegetables since 1969.
Eddie Frederick has got it all. Inspiration, motivation, great advice, and biting opinion pieces as only Eddie Frederick can deliver. Eddie Frederick has got it all.
Wonderful, wonderful, folks. And for those of you just joining, I want to say thank you for joining. Those of you who are new to this program, a hearty thank you for joining also. And I trust and pray that you will be hitting that share button so that we can get more people to enjoy this. This is facts. This is not opinions, folks. This is facts. And who vex, you heard what I said earlier. That is a matter for you and your ugly face. Too bad for you. So welcome back. The number of people who are being able to see the light of day because of the consistency of that old nastiness with his depraved ways is mind-boggling. Since people started to pay attention to things around them, this new consciousness has brought with it a willingness on their part to reach out to confess. In the case of one recently, I was asked for forgiveness because they used to think I just don't like the man, and I was just mouthing off my contempt for him. But they lived long enough to see that he has been and continues to be a very empty man, especially as in the last just under 2 years, when they compared his leadership of the country with that of the Prime Minister Deacon Mitchell. They can see why he is not to be liked. Boy, that rougher. But you see what reality does. You can now compare 1995 to 2022, for the most part, with 23rd June 2022 to now. And what do you see? Chalk and cheese. 18, 19 months. Delivery. Ooh, nearly 30 years. Nothing. Just mayhem, confusion, rubbish, old talk, slackness. Grenada being called, what do you call it? Scandal plagued. Just total garbage. But look at it today. So, folks, I had to remind that person that the old nastiness ain't good, and it ain't good long. I could not for the life of me understood why so few Grenadians were paying attention to this nastiness from way back when he was younger, and be able to see he was very consistent with his lies, tomfoolery, skullduggery, and inherent dishonesty. If they were really paying attention, they would have seen that after going in the village where he grew up and constructing a large, oversized jogozo as his home in the middle of other villagers' virtual squalor and being there for so many years and never made any effort to help develop those loyal supporters' standard of living and quality of life. Hey, you know he ain't good. And that did not happen yesterday. That happened a long time now. So he ain't good long. You see logical deduction, folks? And I don't have no PhD in mathematics, which is the subject of logical deduction. Folks, you have just to look at this man on any viewing medium, and you will see the evil in him. He is inherently evil. And that is why I asked Mrs. Delma Thomas, minister responsible for mental health, to make her first assignment that of issuing a warrant for his immediate detention for serious mental evaluation and treatment, as he is a mental menace to this nation. This warrant should include all his unsavory minions who are let loose on the nation's airwaves, uttering daily and weekly doses of rubbish reflective of mental incapacity and unwellness in an effort to destabilize our nation. Pick them all up for urgent mental evaluation and treatment. Folks, it's no joke that one of the main minions of the old nastiness has to depend on daily trips to a gas station snacket to purchase a meal, you know. And you should see the construct of this meal. Dry Murray, you know. There's another one who could hardly service the monthly commitment for his dwelling. These people have no goodwill, and therefore no one of substance stands in the gap for them. The old nastiness is known to be mean with his own funds, and so they can't get anything from him personally. His friends have all withdrawn, hiding behind the excuse of recovering from the economic and financial fallout from COVID. Remember, access to the national treasury is no more. So when the old nastiness enjoys his lofty lifestyle with his wench of a faceless, nameless monster, these fools are on the ground beating up for dead, but still following him. You see, they're retarded. So when they come to you with their foolishness, you should ignore them, because it is coming from a place of serious wound that you dealt them by your election to office of someone else, and not their master of deception who used the national treasury to mine them. One of them attempted to engage me recently, and when I started to speak, I had to tell him not everybody is as foolish as the audience he targets. And I'm certainly not one of them. I reminded him that time is important to me, and I'm very careful who I spend my time with, because when you give someone your time, it is a piece of you could never get back that you are giving to them. I was on my way after making my point to this idiot. You should see how ashamed he appeared, because you know me, I really don't care. So I said it as loudly as possible, startling people around. The empty plots that they attempt to, you know, it's just sad. They try all sorts of nonsense. But you see, the old nastiness in instructing his goons, you know, while we are at it, we have to get some Calypsonians that people will listen to pay them to sing on Delma, because we have to destroy her totally. Remember, she's a menace to the future of the NNP, you know, because people listening to her, they want to know what she's coming out with. Folks, I am telling you to be warned. Any Calypsonian come with anything on this stalwart of a woman in our local politics, put them in the booing gallery and boo them to death. While penning my presentation for today, and having reached this juncture, an alert registered on my Facebook Messenger, and something told me to check it. When I did, I was able to uncover the following, which was as timely as ever. I know I am onto something when that happens. Listen to this from a person who shall remain nameless, as I do not have permission to share the person's identity. Quote, "Thank you 100% for your consistency. I started listening to you since '89 and been in finance for 36 years. And all that you have said about the old nastiness is true and correct. He groomed me to get my vote in '95, but by the time '96 reached, everything you said was coming to pass, and I dropped him as a hot potato. He sent me home too, because I challenged him about taxes he wrote off for his wealthy friends, while the International Monetary Fund, the IMF, was on our backs to collect outstanding arrears. But that's another story. I'm enjoying my divine revenge. Look at the old nastiness today, a deplorable character. Imagine a man at that level went on local media saying he heard we have registered ISIS in Grenada because somebody told him so. No research, nothing. And to think he feels he will be voted back in power with that stupidness he talking. Listen, dementia must be setting in if it has not already." Unquote. Ode to the power of divine intervention. Folks, I thank you, that particular person, for your timely piece. Of course, I have received many more, which make for interesting reading, some of which are too strongly constructed for public sharing via this medium. I am mostly aghast as to the sources of many of them who were sworn followers of this old nastiness and are so pissed off at his treatment of Mrs. Delma Thomas that they don't want to see him at all today. He has made Mrs. Delma Thomas the single female politician with the most national appeal ever to grace our local political history. Isn't that interesting? You see how being out leaves the old nastiness out of serious business in truth? Out, out, out. While Grenada goes up, up, up. He can't behave like a man who held the office of Prime Minister for the longest period since independence. And he therefore gets what he deserves. Disrespect, disregard, a good cursing as often as he does get it. And generally, nothing. Folks, do not for a minute underestimate the hurt and anguish the old nastiness feels for not being in power to mark the 50th anniversary of independence. You could imagine the Mama Guy and Papi show they would have made with our independence anniversary. NDC under the decent Mitchell as Prime Minister and his creative team have been trying hell hard to salvage what they can to mark the occasion. Look at how imaginative they are to include our school children at all levels nationally. Folks, do not for a moment downplay the political savvy of the old nastiness who understands what this means. In light of the fact that our current Prime Minister and many members of his youthful team could be identified with the same students and other members of the complementary youthful population, all students who are in graduating grades of all levels of our local education system are likely to be qualified to register to vote next time around. If they go out to vote in truth and in fact, who are they going to vote for? The old nastiness? Hell no, I think not. Children of his supporters will not be supporting this old fart as his time is over. O-V-E-R. Did you see the press release his National Nasty Party put out about not being included to pin students with their 50th anniversary pins? Because many of you are not used to paying attention, do you recall when the old nastiness crept through the 2003 elections by 6 votes in Carriacou to win narrowly 8 seats to Delma Thomas led NDC 7 seats? And when Hurricane Ivan came, Thomas, being opposition leader at the time, advanced a proposition to cooperate with his administration in such serious time of crisis. What was the old nastiness's response? 2-man crab can't live in the same hole. How undignified. And so he refused the offer of meaningful cooperation. Now he is in opposition, beating up for dead as a pig to the slaughter. He wants to be included. Hell to the no. Out, out, out. Go and hug up your faceless, nameless monster and hope two of you could discuss the first thing that comes up, if at all. It is quite clear that the old nastiness is losing his mind. Being out leaves him out of serious business. Out, out, out. While Grenada goes up, 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 in spite of all his stupidness. Oh my word. Folks, I'm having a good time here today, aren't you? I hope you are. Come on, answer me. Are you having a good time? If you are and you want more, come on, egg me on, because they have a lot more where that come from. Let's have some fun.
Eddie Frederick has got it all. Inspiration, motivation, great advice, and biting opinion pieces as only Eddie Frederick can deliver. Eddie Frederick has got it all.
This is Edification, made possible by the efforts of the Center for Democracy and Good Governance, CDGG. The strength of views and opinions expressed during edification are not necessarily a reflection or representation of the sponsors and/or affiliates of this program.
I want the best for my family, so every meal has to be perfect. Every bite has to say, There's no doubt in my mind that the best in frozen meats and vegetables has to come from the Country Cold Store. Hams, turkeys, sausages, beef, pork, chicken. I just don't know my family is in safe hands. Thank you, Country Cold Store, for being there for us for the past 40 years.
The Country Cold Store, providing the best in frozen meats and vegetables since 1969.
Eddie Frederick has got it all. Inspiration, motivation, great advice, and biting opinion pieces as only Eddie Frederick can deliver. Eddie Frederick has got it all.
Wonderful, wonderful. Folks, you see, I tell you, he ain't coming back. He's coming back in nothing. Beaten up for dead. You see, he has to undo himself. And nobody could ever mash him up as he is capable of mashing up himself. It's ordained, you know. The universe, providential ordering is in charge right now, you know, folks. That is why he is self-destructing, so to speak. If ever that's a word, I can't be bothered right now. Folks, welcome back. And for those of you just joining, welcome. People are saying, folks, that ISIS is registered in Grenada and the PM should be concerned. Utter rubbish. How the Nigerians say it? Utter rubbish. You see why Mrs. Delma Thomas, Minister of Mental Health, should round him up and detain him for mental evaluation and treatment to prevent him from continuing to be a mental menace to the nation. Not to mention the nuisance he's making of himself. If ISIS is registered in Grenada, I am sure it would have been registered when he was Prime Minister. That is when the organization was active. I respectfully submit that ISIS probably is registered in Grenada under the sobriquet National Nasty Party, headed by that old nastiness. He must be the head of the local ISIS chapter, indeed. His grey matter has become wholly and completely disaggregated. He wants to get back in office to do nothing good for the country. This man has shown us that he has nothing good in him, only evil. When you look at him, he looks frowsy. He looks like a blob of evil. Just evil. He had all the chances between 95 and 2022 for the most part, when he was a younger nastiness, and he failed. And he wants people to believe that he could do something now, that he has morphed into this old evil nastiness that he is right now. Folks, he can't do nothing. That is why he's not coming back. The old nastiness continues to prey on the dunceness of his followers, while he encourages them to dig their heels in to oppose good government. And they are following him to their perpetual peril. Protocol dictates that the old nastiness and his goons be invited to the official activities to mark the 50th anniversary celebrations. And they should be invited as guests only. If they come, they come. If they don't come, that is the universe well-deserved self-inflicted punishment befalling them. Nobody must feel sorry for him nor them, as when they were high and mighty, they had and showed absolutely no respect nor regard for anyone who would not toe their inferior line. Let the old nastiness and his brigands go to hell. That's where they belong. They were invited to the launch of the celebrations back in late October, and they never showed up. Invite them and pray for them not to come. Let them go on a beach somewhere and gather their goons and make their usual foolishness. How did he seize leadership from Blaze? That and many of his other serious transgressions haunt him up to this day. And because he knows how underneath and conniving he was to Blaze, after he caused the real original new National Party to splinter, resulting in the formation of the National Democratic Congress, which started off being headed by Brizan and Alexis, who eventually surrendered to the decent and noble Sir Nicholas Alexander Brathwaite. He is looking at his main challenger for leadership in the same light, because he knows what he did. Wow. The words, what goes around, comes around, are haunting him indeed. All his main challenger is doing is decently putting up himself for the post of leadership in a democratic construct, which this expired commodity in the form of the old nastiness cannot handle. Would he have preferred his main challenger to have done it the same way he did to Blaze? I think not. The public catching him with lies and he's still coming with more. What kind of man is that? And to think all you allow that old nastiness to run your affairs for all these years. No wonder Grenada is in the state it is in today, thanks to all among you. I remember Mr. Edwin Hayliger, QC, God rest his soul, telling me Grenada is not a state. Grenada is in a state. And he's so correct. He was so correct then and more correct now. A little word of caution to some of the senior operatives of the current administration. Take pattern from Prime Minister Deacon Mitchell, Andy Williams, and Tevin Andrews. They have serious working apparatuses and machinery to keep their constituents engaged and interested in what they are doing in their constituencies. Those of you who might be hard to sell, you would do well to find people around you who are not hard to buy from. Hello? Some of you are surrounded by people who are hard to buy from, even though you yourself might be hard to sell. Take pain to allay with some cold drops of modesty, your skipping spirits. lest you be misconstrued in the place you go to and lose your hopes. Folks, study your head. I drop it as it needs to be dropped, frankly, because some of you can be seen to be playing the fool. Time to get serious and take your game up a notch. The quicker the old nastiness and his goons get to understand that this is not 2008 to 2013 period, and the same fate that befell the NDC back then is not awaiting them anymore, with a more enlightened population forecast to be more grateful for all of the benefits brought to them by this new administration, with actual delivery of promises as never before experienced in the history of our local politics, with the nation not being treated with contempt and Grenada not being known on the world stage as scandal-plagued, and with Deacon Mitchell not being the Mitchell of disrepute and ill repute. The stage is set for their resounding return to office. So the ground is not fertile for any repeat of that 2008 to 2013 experience. So stop worrying about the old nastiness and the fake confidence he seems to be exuding as if he coming back. He ain't coming back. Throw that into the universe as your daily and regular affirmation. And trust me, manifestation awaits. Manifestation awaits. There is no Judas on board the current NDC. And the supporters who are guarding the gates are ferocious as all hell this time around. And folks, if I had to be the last man standing, I intend to be very ferocious, standing in the gap to make sure that old nastiness never resurges over power in this country again. I am more and more convinced that he ain't coming back. Hence their focus on scaremongering. And is that back to the ISIS stupid comment, reflective of his desperation to frighten people to see how he could bring the attention of the international community to our citizenship by investment program for them to put the squeeze on us. You see how wicked and evil he is? That's an evil man, folks. That is what that ISIS comment was all about. I tell you, evil. He knows that the Deacon Mitchell-led administration will put the CBI funds to good use, and that he has been putting them to great use since it is no longer categorized as a grant, but as integral to a consolidated fund, and that the transformation agenda will be properly funded, and he wants to see if he could thwart that. So throw ISIS in the works, and hopefully it can stymie the decent Mitchell's chances altogether. Could you imagine the lengths this old nastiness would go to see if he could harm this country that he says he loves in his effort to get back into power? I tell you, the man evil. He do good, and he do good long. COVID-19 cases all over the world are up. But it is not a danger that it once was. You know why? Because we are a lot wiser now. We are a lot more aware. And our communities are a lot more immune. Because we have developed tolerance. Hello? Yet for all, this scaremonger wants to see if he could hinder the celebrations by getting people traveling home for the 50th anniversary festivities to change their mind. I tell you, he evil. He ain't good. What he does not know is that where they are coming from, the numbers are up there too. And people are dying of it all over. People must take their own precautions and safeguard themselves. Life has to go on whether COVID cases are up, across, sideways, or down. I tell you, he don't go the evil. Or you still want to know what he did to me that caused me to be out on a limb to show him up as I do, as regularly as I do? He has hurt too many goddamn people, and the entire country's chances of being a model that it had the potential to be, for me, this true and genuine patriot, to let him alone. His transgressions must be ventilated in the open for all who refuse to see them in the past when you were not paying attention. We want you to see them now that you have started to pull up your chair. You see, people always like to play the best Christians, to tell others about forgiveness. They don't seem to understand that there are different degrees of forgiveness. There's a forgiveness that we do when we dismiss the forgiven with absolute forgetting that they ever existed. Then there is the forgiveness that is so hard that every time you remember, you have to keep forgiving the person or the situation because you're trying hell hard to forget. Then there is the forgiveness that you can do while being able to joke around with the forgiven. And even though you did not forget, the love and high regard you have for the contrite spirit of the forgiven, it is like they never transgressed against you at all because the issue has become a joke. You see the three varying levels of forgiveness, folks? We should be reminded to not forgive people we know who would abuse that forgiveness. Especially people who are known to abuse people's kindness. You remember I told you that I reconciled with the old nastiness in a mutual friend's presence. And whereas I left feeling light and easy to move on, the old nastiness used it to his convenience. And as soon as he rose again, it was more fire for me. That mutual friend was so distressed by that, it wasn't funny. By the way, if you forgive someone, it does not mean you have to be exactly in the same relationship as you were before. You can interact with that person, but not in the same way as before. Or you can choose to not interact at all. Isn't that interesting? Being out leaves him out of serious business. Out, out, out. While Grenada goes up, up, up in spite of all his foolishness. Folks, I'm in and I'm out. But just before I am finally gone, I want to change gears here a bit to point out some important facts. When we think of leader, something must be conjured up in your mind when we think of the word leader. If as a leader, you have to hurt others to feel powerful, you are an extremely weak person. You're an infidel. You see, when Bobby Mattingly said this, it reminded me of Bob Marley's words regarding riches versus poverty. Some people are so poor, all they have is money. Folks, if you are any leader today, and you're afraid to stand up for what you lead, then you're not worthy. The strength of leadership is measured by the trust it commands. Nurture it with integrity and transparency, and it becomes your most powerful ally in steering change. Prime Minister Deacon Mitchell comes to the table of leadership in this way that makes him attractive to the nation and a breath of fresh air to our political landscape. A proper leader promotes his followers to not want those same followers to need him or her anymore. So everything he or she is doing is with the intention of you not needing him or her anymore. When he is in training, when he's training you, for instance, He's not training you because he wants to impress you with what he knows or what he can do. You know. His training of you is to lead you on the path to become better than he or she is. He or she is not setting out to be impressive. If he or she is impressive to you, it's because you don't think you can do what he or she does. And if you don't think you can do what he or she does, he or she failed in his or her leadership of you. The leader's goal is to make everyone empowered to feel they can do it. The old nastiness would do well to understand that. But you see, when you are poorly socialized and your character is flawed, leadership could never be as simple and uncomplicated as that. Leadership stands on 3 legs, folks. Integrity. Be your words and your actions. Inspiration. Ignite others' potential. Humility. Lead to serve, not to shine. Our current Prime Minister, Deacon Mitchell, is a beacon of these 3. Integrity, inspiration, and humility. Mufti Bank, a Muslim cleric, is on record as having said, quote, "Whatever you've been blessed with, don't allow it to make you arrogant. Whatever God took away from you, do not be depressed. We live like this, a day for you and a day against you. One day you make a profit and one day a loss. That's life," unquote. I want to end by reminding Mrs. Delma Thomas, minister responsible for mental health, take her first assignment and make that assignment that of issuing a warrant for the immediate detention of the old nastiness for serious mental evaluation and treatment, as he's a mental menace to the nation. He needs to be protected from himself, and the nation needs to be protected from him. This warrant should include all his unsavory minions who are let loose on the nation's airwaves, uttering daily and weekly doses of rubbish reflective of mental incapacity and unwellness in an effort to destabilize our nation. Pick them up for urgent mental evaluation and immediate treatment. Folks, when I hear many of you who ought to know better and understand the very principles of evolution speak cautiously and behave as frightened Fridays when fearing the return of the old nastiness, I find that somewhat annoying. In fact, many of you do not seem to understand the providential ordering of things in this very life. It is ordained with certainty that the old nastiness is done, and all the signs are there for all who have eyes to see. The noise you hear the old nastiness making all over the place is a sign of him dying like a pig to the slaughter. Pig does make noise till he can't cry anymore. And that is all he is doing. It is because many of you place too much emphasis on reputation over character is why you frighten yourselves over the decrepit reputation of this old nastiness. Remember what I told you? Reputation is what people think of you. So that is never important. Character is who you are. And when you take care of who you are, which is your character, your reputation, what other people think of you will take care of itself. History records many developments that give life to reputation being key to power. Chinese General Liang was resting in a town with a few of his soldiers when some scouts reported a huge army approaching. Knowing he stood no chance in a fair fight, he told his men, "Open the gates and you all go and hide. Hide properly." He himself sat on a high wall wearing Tao's robes while playing a lute. The enemy arrived and saw this bizarre scene, but knew that General Liang was no ordinary general. He was a genius. The open gates, Taoist robes, and the singing, it all felt like a trap to them. All they had to do was to walk in. But so great was their fear of Liang's reputation that they dared not find out, and they all retreated. Folks, the same goes for the terrible reputation of the old nastiness and all that he's capable of, that so many still fear him to this day. I submit to all of you in that category. His reputation is that bad because he never had good character. And you should never surrender to anyone with such tacky and faulty character. Let us, with tumultuous and resounding volume, put into the universe: the old nastiness is not coming back. And in spite of him, we will do what we all must to help clean up the great mess he put us in while we advance Grenada, so that year by year we have something great to celebrate going forward. Folks, it is no secret and no mistake that the old nastiness is not around the precincts of power for us to observe the 50th anniversary of independence, because this marks a new beginning without nastiness. And the author of nastiness over Grenada over the last 30 years almost, I want you to affirm with me: we will remain focused. The old nastiness is not coming back. Come on, folks. We will remain focused. The old nastiness is not coming back. Let me hear you. We will remain focused. The old nastiness is not coming back. That is what you need to affirm, and affirm that daily. Thank you for joining me. I want you to continue to share. See you next week, God willing, for more extraordinary program. Isn't that interesting? I tell you, they must be sorry they juked me up when they did, because it's open season in their tail. Until next week, God willing, stay safe, stay well, remain vigilant and lifted. Let me thank each and every one of you for showing up today. We will remain focused. The old nastiness is not coming back. Remember that, affirm that, and believe it, and stop being half-hearted about it, because he know he ain't coming back, notwithstanding all the rubbish he and his Drake-like vagrant-looking minions are trying to spread rubbish. He ain't coming back in nothing. And while we're at it, some of you lazy people who are operatives of the current administration, you better wake up, because I told you a lot of us out here who are standing in the gap, we are not prepared to stay sleeping and allow you who fall asleep at the wheel, some of you, to be candidates again. That ain't happening under our watch, because we're going to be making public noise and emboldening and empowering Prime Minister Deacon Mitchell to make serious decisions on replacing you. Wake up, shape up, or ship out. You can find me on Facebook, folks, Instagram, LinkedIn, Twitter, and YouTube. Just type in my name, Edward or Eddie Frederick. Subscribe, like, share. Be prepared to receive your mental multivitamins as straight up as I declare them. May this year, 2024, be the year of conscious awakening to take our health more seriously, so together we can bring our national life expectancy to 70 years and over while building Grenada. Thank you, thank you, thank you. Toodaloo, folks. It's a plum-pleasing pleasure to have had you in my company, but I must take off now. Peace and eternal blessings to all of you.
Eddie Frederick has got it all. Inspiration, motivation, great advice, and biting opinion pieces as only Eddie Frederick can deliver. Eddie Frederick has got it all.
This has been Edification, made possible by the efforts of the Center for Democracy and Good Governance, CDGG. The Center for Democracy and Good Governance is a sound organization established to promote and strengthen democracy. For too long now, our generally perceived poorly educated electorate have fallen victim to the cheap and inferior propaganda of those seeking to hold others captive under the guise of democracy. Gladly, the CDGG uses edification to help to actively pursue a sustainable approach to reorient our people towards the importance of electing and selecting people of good character to public life. Through edification, we will highlight the importance of education appropriate to our development, proper healthcare and facilities as our right, respect for law and order, not to mention upgrading our people's thinking so they could become qualified participants in the democratic process to their advantage. After all, Grenada's national constitution makes allowances for the ideal of free men to enjoy freedom from fear and want, which can be best achieved if conditions are created whereby everyone may enjoy his economic, social and political, civil and cultural rights.
I want the best for my family, so every meal has to be perfect. Every bite has to say, There's no doubt in my mind that the best in frozen meats and vegetables has to come from the Country Cold Store. Hams, turkeys, sausages, beef, pork, chicken. I just don't know my family is in safe hands. Thank you, Country Cold Store, for being there for us for the past 40 years.
The Country Cold Store, providing the best in frozen meats and vegetables since 1969.
Attention all forward-thinking companies. Sure, you can do with a continuous positive boost to your image and impact your bottom line. Hiring the right people with the right attitude and mindset is where to start. Even if you did not get it right through your current hiring methods, we can help develop the right mindset for your current employees. If you think training is expensive, try not training and you will experience a perpetual downward spiral in patronage on account of increased dissatisfied customers. Take things into your hands and engage the best at motivation and customer care training with a tried and tested track record. Visit www.efrederick.com now and learn how you can change the atmosphere in your business and improve the customer experience for everyone who does business with you. Spice Island Beach Resort and Belmont Estate are two such local entities of world renown that have benefited tremendously from ongoing customer care, social skills, and motivation training. Training changes everything for the better for any business and every team member. Enhance employee performance through increased awareness and passion for the job at hand. Greater potential in your workforce awaits you through engaged, high-energy training that works. Log on now, www.efrederick.com.
Eddie Frederick has got it all. Inspiration, motivation, great advice, and biting opinion pieces as only Eddie Frederick can deliver.